All right, welcome back to the shop. We're ready to shoot the fifth video in the series. Today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be the battery hatch. We'll be setting up to put a battery hatch in. Yesterday I got a jig. Everything stayed perfect with them. The only thing I've done so far is taken some 007 carbon and I've CA'd that in a couple of strategic spots just to really help keep the shape when I cut loose of the battery hatch. So if you haven't used this stuff, it's really good. This 0.007 carbon laminate. 7,000 stick. And what's nice about it, it doesn't really have a tremendous amount of weight, but will add strength or structure to something. I've actually used these as wing ribs in the last build, and really they can go on with CA. So CA impregnates it and really makes just a bunch of stiffness in here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to lay out where the battery hatch is going to go. And then I'm going to put I'll use some 7 carbon inside to reinforce the sides and also reinforce the curve on the top to keep it there without I won't need any formers or ribs. So, all right. So we'll get started here in a minute. The other good thing is just a lot of things this hobby teaches. This thing, something my daughter uses and my wife, and somebody dropped it and broke it. But see, I'm going to be able to put it back together. So hobbying really teaches you a lot of these simple things. I'm actually going to drill it and pin it with a carbon rod and some CA, so it'll be a high-speed racing tool here, whatever it does. But just another thing the hobby teaches you how to do. Teaches you, normally people would just throw it out or buy another one. So anyway, all right. So what I did, so what I've done is I've actually marked the center line here. I did that simple. I just ran the laser down, picked up the tail, picked up the nose, and I kind of just drew a straight line. And then I have this is a template, a battery hatch template that I've used on number 8. So I'll use that one, lay it in place, hold it down, mark it around, and then flip it over and do the same thing. And that'll give me the outline to cut out. So what I'm worried about is there's a former back here that I got to find. And what I did was I put a hole exacto. I'm sort of thing to kind of give me where the point is. And I'll kind of do that again. Okay, it's right there. And that's about a ½ inch in front of that bulkhead, which will give me enough room for that flap. So it's right here, actually. All I did was take my blade and stuck it up through to kind of give me the spot. And that's where part of this will go. So now what we'll do is we'll line that up there. And here we'll draw this out and see where we end up. So you can make these templates. This happens to be like a piece of 330 seconds also that I have laying around. 1/64 plywood is really good. It's bendable. And using a ballpoint pen is good here because it kind of gives you a groove. Kind of cutting. And what I'm going to do is just make a slight cut in each side here to give me an idea on the inside where I end up. Because I want to put reinforcement in there. So I'll do the same thing on this side. Then I flip the template over. Hmm. Just lay this out again. Make sure I've got it where I need. Like the measurements on both sides here. It don't have to be perfect, but you want it to look symmetrical. Hmm. So coming down pretty close to the line, which is a little bit concerning, but what I'll do is cheated it just a little bit that way. I want to think about it. So let me just highlight this line the full length. Hmm. All right, so what I'm gonna do is because I don't like the way it lands on each side of the curve. How well you can see it, but what I'm gonna do is move the camera, see if you get a little better view. All right, so I just repositioned the camera, and here's a little bit of my concern is that it looks like it falls off a little bit, like a little bit uneven. I don't like the way it laid out symmetrical, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cheat it a little bit. What I can do is I can shorten it up each side an eighth. And do is just shift it down a little bit. Make the hatch a little bigger. Think about this first. I know. I'm going to go with I think the inner line. Okay. All right. What I'm going to do. All right. So now the trick. This is the other thing that I figured out. So now what you want to do is you're going to mark it. So what I'll do is cut through a couple spots. And I'll push through in a couple spots just to kind of give me the mark. And what you want to do is just cut carefully. All right, so now what I'll do is flip it over, and I'll look for my cutouts here. I can see one in there. I can mark that there. All right, so what I did was just mark where the edges are. For now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some, I'll make some carbon ribs here. But the trick is I want to make sure that they don't go outside those lines, because then they get really hard to cut through. So it looks like, let's see. If I make them about an inch, if I make them 3 inches each, I'll be in a good position here. So I'll just cut them off on my mat here. So this carbon cuts pretty easily. And look, I could just cut it with a scissor. So we'll make a few of these. All right. I got 4. Now what I want to do, I think I have to be cut a little bit shorter. 3 inches, a little bit more. I cut about half an inch off. So what I want to do, my CA. So now, like right in the center, I'll just put a dab of CA. I just impregnate this thing with CA. Few drops of CA here. Let's see, it kicks off good, boy. So you can see kind of what we're doing here. Just move some of the stuff. What's able to do is I can break this out. So I can cut along the edge. Let's let it kick off for a second. Well, you gotta reach in and break that off. Let's see. All right, I ripped that former out so that I can come around and cut the thing out without having a challenge anywhere. I'm gonna put the fourth one right where this is. All right. Nothing like a pair of needle nose pliers, huh? And what I'll say is this 007 carbon has almost no weight to it. Just using the Q-tip to kind of kick this off. Pick up the excess CA. Okay. I'll let that dry for a second. And then what we'll do is we're gonna cut it out. And then what I want to do is I'll put the 007 carbon around the perimeter and let the thing rest on it. And this stuff becomes like it becomes like a rock. I just want to make sure it's all kicked off. Now, we're going to carefully cut it out. And this is where a new blade really helps. All right, so here's where a brand new number 11 blade comes in handy, especially on the cross grain stuff. So just trying to cut it cleanly, just take your time with the cross grain, trying to make it. And this is one of the areas where if you can take your time and make this cut as clean as possible, it will pay off later on, for sure. That I can tell you. And what I try to do is cut the hard stuff first. And that means going across the grain. And when you get with the grain, it kind of runs real quick. And that's when you got to just really take your time. Okay. So now, carefully cut this. This is where you can end up with a gap. They already got a little bit of a gouge there. I'm going to have to now fill. For whatever reason, sometimes some things I'm probably cutting through where that former was. And that's why I kind of pulled the formers out, because they're hard to cut through, and it can butcher this up a little. And again, just really take your time on the straights. If we get a wobbly line here, it will definitely show up. And it will spring as you cut it, so just something to be aware of that you're going to have to fit back in. And voila. Okay, so I kept most of it shaped, not bad. So if you look now, this becomes very soft, and this is where we got to stiffen it up. I should have done a better job of laying where these formers were, knowing that I had to put a hatch in. But that's okay. All right, now, so what you want to do is take a block and just clean up the edges. So what I like to do is just we're just cleaning up the edges a little bit, which will create a little clearance, which is not the worst thing in the world. I'll show you how I use superfill to kind of get a good battery out. Okay, not bad. Not perfect, but not bad. And what I'll do is I'll probably add a rib or two, or maybe a former or two, just to stiffen it up some. But I mostly kept the shape. The other thing is kind of just sanding this in flat. Have a couple spots that are not perfect, but that's okay. Right, not bad. Overall, not too bad. All right, so got our hat cut out. We're gonna need some reinforcement. I'm gonna put a couple formers in it just to play it safer. It's a little lighter than I like. The other thing we're gonna do is we're gonna stiffen this up a little bit as well. This will tighten up a little bit as the bottoms go on. But what I want to do is I'm going to stiffen the sides a little bit with some 1/16 sandwiched in between some of this 007 carbon, which will add a tremendous amount of strength for a little weight. Okay, so first things first, I'm just looking at this whole thing. Um, so definitely one of the other things I'll probably do is I'll probably run a piece of carbon in here, up in here in the nose area, just to give us some a little bit extra strength. So let's flip this upside down. This is where I wish I had a bigger shot. Now, what I did do is I have a former that I made before to kind of fit in, tie this front former together. Now we'll have to trim a little, sand a little bit of it in. Well, let's just see where it is. So you're just gonna fit it in. So I gotta trim down the sides a little bit. So I'm trying to do is get the former in and attach it to this other former so we have some strength there, which is pretty close. And what that'll do is it'll add some strength to the nose. And fits. Very good. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Alright, so that added a bunch of stiffness into the nose. And that's good. Back here is nice. And now what we gotta do is we gotta work on this piece of it here. Alright, so what I'm gonna do is I got a piece of 16, and I'll put some 007 carbon between it. I'll make a nice little sandwich on it, and it adds a whole bunch of rigidity for minimal weight. Alright, so I got two pieces of 1/16 and 007 carbon here, and what I'll do is sandwich it together. And what I want to do, have one square side or one flush side. So what I do is push the two pieces of balsa down on the flat table. And I got them where I want them. I squeeze them together, and what I'll do is just drop a little glue here and hold it together. Get one side tightened in. Usually this is where I glue my fingers together. Okay, so now do the same thing on the other side. What I'll do is hold it down in a couple like that. Just tack it in. I leave some of the 007 carbon sticking out, and I'll trim that off later. It just makes it easier to glue. So now it's pieced together. What you want to do is run a glue seam on it. So what's nice is use gravity. Just let it run down to the edge. Squeeze it together. Do the same thing on the other side, just to make sure you got a good glue joint. Okay, so there you go. It's a nice piece of 007 carbon. Now what I'll do is I'll trim off the excess. Because all that'll do is stick out inside and get your fingers on it when you go change a battery or something. Just cut down it. I'll take a piece of sandpaper, just sand it in a little bit. Lay it flat on the table. And there you go. You got a good piece here that's going to help stiffen this up a lot. So I got two of them made, and now we'll cut them to size in here. Just reposition the camera. So what I'm going to do is run it right on the inside there. So what I'll do first is cut the straight edge on it. Sure. So that carbon is a little bit hard to sand through, but it does. Clean the edge up. Now what I'll do is I'll measure it to get the right size. I'll measure from that bulkhead to this one. And I got about 8 3/4, it looks like. 8 3/4. Now what I'll do is I'll cut it a little bit bigger than 8 3/4, maybe a 16th bigger, and I'll sand it in. The tighter the fit, the better. And you can really feel the difference when you hit the carbon. Let's just see how this fits up. Wow, just about perfect. Let's see if it fits on the other side like that, like a glove. Yeah, wow. Huh, how about it? No sanding whatsoever. That never happens, so I'm sure. So square this edge up. And all I'll do is make a carbon copy of it. All right. Now, what I usually do is I save these cut-offs. You never know when you're gonna need something. All right, so now we're pretty good. This one's a little bit long. So let me just sand the edge a little bit here. I have the kitchen on 10,000 things. What I want to do is just make sure I'm not getting up to that lip as much as I can. Oh, get away from the lip. I can a little bit more off this one. So you just gotta fit this in. You want it to be tight because you don't want to have a gap because you want to get the full strength out of the connection of connecting the two bulkheads together. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, so that's pretty good. So we're gonna fit our piece up here. And so we're gonna just tack this corner in. So I do is just glue in a couple spots. What's nice is I can glue seam all this. So what's nice is the CA will run into the 007 carbon even more. That's why I only glued one side. So like I could just run a hefty glue seam here and it will soak in there really nicely. been creating a bunch of stiffness. If you see, it's already much less movement in it already, just by that simply. So, just trying to readjust this camera a little bit. So now the other side, we'll go do the other side here. Just square up one of these edges here. Here we go. Gonna do this side in here. Adds a ton of stiffness into the nose. And then when we close the bottom, and it's going to add even more. So just going to run a good glue seam here. All right. So now we've added a bunch of stiffness to this. Can't squeeze it. Minimal amount of weight. Yeah. So I'll do is I want to finish up the top hatch, and then I can get to the bottom, or I can get the fuse gear in. I can show you how I mount that. Then I get the bottom block on, and once that's all on, then we're really good in a really good position. But so far, so good. Put some thick CA so it wicks in a little bit. Pushing into the corners. Let that thick CA penetrate a little bit. Whilst I finish off my coffee. All right, so we'll let that sit a minute. While we're waiting for that to kind of dry along, we're going to work on the hatch a little bit. So what I have is I have a couple of formers I'm going to put back. That's the front former, right? Yeah. So I got to make one more former. So what I'm going to do is put a former right here, right? Not use that carbon. I kind of tie this former in. What I'm doing is just line it up. So what I do is just tack the center. And we'll cut off the bottom here to make this fit in the way it's supposed to. So I got to make one more. And this is the beauty of having a few your mold. So you're able to quickly and simply make these formers that'll fit in perfectly. I'll cut this other former here. And again, just cut the outside of the one. Yep. Taking my block. And the beauty of this is that it's very repeatable. And you can usually use your top and bottom blocks over and over again. Especially if you make a good one. I want to make sure I get this right. All right, so again, just a little bit of TA. The one thing that I really wish I was better with was the gluing part. I always end up using more glue than I need to. TA is not as bad because of the weight. But I kind of stay away from epoxies. I feel like CA, most of it evaporates. It still adds some weight, but like I said, that's the one thing I wish I could be better at. Is really just gluing, having it be perfectly neat. Okay, and we need one more here. And now what we'll do is we'll trim these up so they're out of the way. So I do that by taking my straight edge, carefully not cutting my fingers. Just be careful you don't cut your fingers where your fingers are on the back of this. And there you go. And there's our hatch, really nice and stiff. So now I'm happy with the hatch. It's not flimsy anymore. In the front here, we're going to put a little tab to catch in the back. It gets a latch, which I got to go dig out. Okay, so that's all pretty stiff. So now, see how it fits up. So pretty close right there. That's good. Pretty happy with that overall fit up. Kind of sits in a couple spots that aren't perfect. We'll fix all that up. Now we have pulled in. Let's sand that in. Okay, not bad. But overall, that's not too bad. So now what we got to do is we're going to make the tab for the front. There isn't a lot of room here, which is fine. But it's a short tab that sticks out that kind of catches me in. So I'll do that with a piece of 64 plywood. I just find a piece. What I want to do is off camera, I'm going to clean it up a little bit. So what I'm gonna do is put it back a little bit. So something like that. All right, so what I'm gonna do is now I'm gonna glue it all the way back to that former here like this. And then what I'll do is I'll trim the front out to get it to what it should be. So I'm holding it right up against it. Infusing a bunch of CA in there. So let that dry up a second. And then I'll do is I'm gonna cut that tab piece off for what I need. I mean, I only got about 1/8 of an inch here. The other thing is I want to harden up this edge a little bit. So let me get I'll use thick CA and a paper towel. All right, so what I'm using is a little bit of thick CA to harden up this edge. Do the same thing on the back. And all I'm trying to do is just really just harden this up a little bit. So the other thing I'll do is I'm going to sand this in a little bit. And I'll just run a glue seam from the top here. Okay. All right, so we'll let that dry up a little bit. Now, so what I'm going to do is draw this out a little bit. Take my scissors and just cut it. I'm going to leave the line here. Okay. And now what I'll do is sand this in. Nice about 64 plywood is you can cut it with a scissors. The spot here where they could actually glue. There's nothing worse than what I'll say gluing the hatchet. All right, so we'll fit this in. So just carefully going to work on sanding a couple spots here. And now it's really just working on fitting it in, fitting it up a little bit better and better. If it's not perfect, it's okay. Like right here, the back is pretty good. And over here, we're a little tight. Set this up. The fit up is pretty good. This side's really good. This side needs a little bit of work in here. And we just keep working here so you got a clean fit up. What I want to do is I want to just cut back this edge a little bit. Okay, so I'm just gonna trim it up. You see, I kind of just cleaned it up the tongue a little bit just to make sure that's not holding us up in spots. That's pretty good. All right, that's pretty good. What I'll do is get the latch set, and then what I do here is, and I'll show you how I do this when I fit this up finally, get a good clean edge. Show you some of the things that I do that I think make it good. And of course, there's always a little spot that I'm not happy with right there. Let's see if we can fill it in with a piece of wood or something. But yeah, so overall, that's not too bad. And what I'm gonna work on next is the latch in the back. Once I get the latch set, then I can work on all the fit up stuff. I mean, it's pretty close here. Just a light standing, I think it's gonna get me there. So this is just a lot of fit up. Like this side is almost perfect. I couldn't ask for a better fit up on this side. A little low over there. So what I'm gonna do is the blue fill will go more on the. Looks like it's gonna go more. Let's see. That's a pretty good fit up there. Once I get the latch in, that'll be the final piece of the puzzle here. A couple spots that need a little bit of help. So overall, pretty good. And you gotta remember when you get carbon veil on here too, it's gonna help. Yeah, that's okay. So that's pretty good. I got one spot I'm not happy with right over here on this side. It looks like I cut in and lost a piece of wood, but I'll fix that up. All right, so now I'm gonna get the latch and show you how I do the latch block. Right. So here I am, back with a hatch that I got. I get these from Amazon. They're plastic. They're pretty light. What I like about them is I can actually take this little post off. I can unscrew it. So when you finish it, you can kind of do that. All right. So what I did was I determined where it goes. I figured out the distance here from the back half of this all the way retracted is 1 5/8 inches. So I put it there so that when it's all the way retracted, it's inside of here. So now what I will do is I'll glue this in place. And I use CA on this. So what I'll do is I will just tack it with some thin CA. And once I'm happy with it, what I will do is fill it with thick CA all around it. Some kicker. So I just tack it in case I gotta move it. So I'm pretty happy with that. So what I will do is on a little glue seam, and you gotta be careful you don't get glue into the barrel because it will not work. So again, just don't want to get into the barrel. If you get into the barrel, it will not work. Alright, so it's tacked in place like I want it. Moving some stuff here. I need a bigger shot, what I really need. Alright. So now that I got tacked in place, it moves nice and good. So what I'm gonna do is actually fit it in. And what's nice about having the bottom open is that I can really just fit this thing up the way I want it. Okay. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna tape it. So I'm just gonna tape this thing in place to where I want it. Alright, so now I got the top pretty much where I want it. I'll tape both sides of the other thing that'll help some of this shape is that when we'll carbon bales it, they'll put this all on in one unit and then you can cut the seam out. And that'll help it tighten it up a little bit more. Kind of mold itself to the shape it needs to be. Alright, so here's the beauty of this now. See, you just reposition some stuff. So now what I'm doing is I use a piece of brass tubing. I'm going to stick in there so that this thing goes into it and then locks in. And this way I guarantee I'm locked into exactly where I want it. Yeah. Perfect. Good. I'm going to line the inside of it 1/64 plywood. That'll help this as well. Keep it to where it needs to be. Brass tubing. All right. So what I decided to use was a carbon pushrod tube. It seems to be the perfect size. I was going to use a piece of brass tube. I've used them before, but I had this and I wanted to use it. So So I'll pull the latch back here. Let's see. So I'm pretty happy with that. So what I will do is I'm gonna use some thick CA here. Let me just clean off the tip. So I want to use thick here. There is a little bit of a, this is round, and I want the glue to kind of run around the sides of it. Again, don't glue the, make sure it's all the way back. Just pulling the tip out. Making sure the tip is clean and flowing. Make sure the thick CA. A little kicker. All right, now I'll just flip it over and make sure I'm happy with it. But that trick worked pretty good. This is point 210 carbon push rod. I like it. It's a little bit thicker to give me the space I wanted. Pull down the hatch. Okay. So now here we will go. Peel the tape off. And there you go. You put it on, stick the piece in, and it's latched in. All right, so now the other thing I want to do is I'm going to add some 1/64 sides to this. Because I just want to be able to stiffen up these sides because they are 1/16 and you can easily break them in. And I'll have them stick up about a 1/16 of an inch or so. I think that'll also help put this thing down. So let me get a piece of 64th. I think this is 60. Oh, okay. Yeah, so I got a piece of 64th. And what I'm going to do is take my stripper and strip it down about a quarter of an inch. Do I need another one? you want is you want it to be sticking up a little bit. And you don't want to get a lot of glue. Always glue my fingers. So you don't want any glue boogers sticking up over here because that'll just keep your thing out. It'll keep the hatch out. So I use my X-Acto to push it up against here. All right, so you want enough meat sticking up, especially at the ends. So what I do is I get this side set, I can push some of this down. And this is just a nice edge here. It's going to help two things. One, it's going to clean up the edge, to help you have a cleaner edge. Two, second thing it'll do, like I said, it'll push the hatch out a little bit, allowing you to get a little bit more firmness on it. And it'll definitely stiffen this edge. So just running a good glue seam in here. What's nice too is it really stiffens up the top a little bit. Adding more stiffness to this. Around the back, we can add a few pieces too. So a lot of times, what I like to do is just add a piece in like that. Um, so where the tail sticks through, just glue that in. All right, now so what we got to do is we're going to have to trim off a little bit of this, of the formers, which I kind of knew. So what you do is just cut them on a little bit of an angle. I never really glued the edges down. Okay, you seeing that? So what I do is just take the corners off. Cleaning that edge off. Right. And there you go. And the fit up is much better over here, and I'll definitely be able to fill that piece in there. I'll show you how to do that trick. But overall, not bad. We got to that edge a little bit here. I'm gonna just curving this in a little bit. A little bit of work to do right in there. Some of this is you're just gonna bend the plywood in a little bit. And the other thing is I'm gonna take off some of this anyway. What I will do is run my Dremel tool until I get it about even. Yeah. Yeah, the fit up is pretty close. I'm very happy with that. So the rest of this fit up will be fitting with the blue fill, which will work out very nicely. Gotta push that a little bit. Yeah, it's gonna come out real nice. All right, so that's how I did the battery hatch. Next up will be the bottom. We'll work on the landing gear. Just to show you the inside, what this looks like. Next will be the landing gear plates, or the landing gear plate for the fuse gear. But that's what the inside hatch looks like. And it releases nicely. The fit up is pretty good on it. And I'll show you how I finish it with the super fill. Really get a nice clean edge on it, because that's really where you're going to gain and lose appearance points on those fit up on pieces like that. That's where it matters. So, all right. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got some tips off of it. See you the next time.